I didn't plan to go. That's the truth. The plan was beer, leftover pasta, maybe scroll through a few Reddit threads and call it a night. But the way Jenna left the house didn't sit right. It wasn't what she said. It was what she didn't say. She was standing at the mirror, blending blush into her cheeks. Her lips parted just slightly like she was concentrating on not looking too eager. It's just a bachelorette party, Eddie. You don't know them. Girls, drinks, gossip, she said, barely looking in my direction. She was already halfway through her mascara before I could even respond. I watched her through the hallway mirror reflection. How she shifted her weight from one heel to the other. How she glanced down at her phone twice while pretending not to. That white dress she pulled from the back of the closet hadn't seen the light of day since our anniversary in Santa Barbara 2 years ago. And the perfume, something heavier, muskier than her usual floral stuff, hit my chest like a warning bell. Have fun, I said finally. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Don't wait up, she tossed over her shoulder as she grabbed her clutch and stepped out the door. Don't wait up. I did exactly that, waited. Watched the time creep past 6:30. Then 6:45. Then 7 o'clock. I poured myself a drink, sat on the couch, and stared at the blank TV screen like it might suddenly explain what was happening. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe it was nothing. But maybe it wasn't. I grabbed my keys at 7:22 and drove. The wine bar was brand new. Some trendy spot that had just opened near the San Diego coast. Full of string lights, ocean views, and Instagram-worthy cocktails that cost more than a tank of gas. The kind of place where people go to pretend they're in love with their lives. I parked a block away and walked up along the sidewalk, my heart pounding with every step. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Just that if I didn't go, it'd eat at me. And there she was, Jenna. Not inside with a gaggle of women holding novelty straws and screaming over bad 90s playlists. No, she was outside, near the edge of the patio, leaning into a man I didn't recognize. Tall, neatly groomed, wearing a blazer even though the breeze off the ocean was warm. He had his hand on the small of her back. Comfortable, like he belonged there, like it wasn't the first time. I stopped just behind a row of potted palms, hidden from view but close enough to hear. Jenna tossed her hair back and laughed. Really laughed, like she hadn't at home in months. Loud enough that a couple at the next table turned to look. Then I heard her say it. I'm married to an idiot. She said it like a joke, like the punchline to something charming. Like I was the punchline. My face went cold. Everything slowed down, then sped up at once. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I just watched her, standing there with this stranger who clearly wasn't part of any bachelorette party. There were no girls in glittery sashes, no bridal decorations. Just her and him, drinking wine under string lights like a scene from a movie I was never cast in. She touched his arm. He leaned in to say something and she smiled, her real smile. The one I used to get when I'd surprise her with coffee in bed. Or when we'd find some weird little cafe on vacation. That smile was his now. I stayed in the shadows until they left. He walked her to a sleek black car. Definitely not a rental. She slid into the passenger seat like it was automatic, like it was something she'd done before. He got in on the driver's side, and the car eased out into the street like nothing had happened. I didn't follow. I didn't make a scene. I just stood there, staring at the space where they'd been. People passed me on the sidewalk, laughing, holding hands, clinking glasses. The world kept going, like it didn't just shatter for me. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe he was just a friend. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But I knew Jenna. I knew her tells. And I knew in my gut that this wasn't the first night. It was just the first one I caught her. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on the couch, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling fan spin slow circles above me like it was waiting for something I couldn't give it. Maybe I dozed off for a few minutes here and there, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hand on his waist. I heard her laugh. I heard her call me an idiot. At 5:12 a.m., I stood up and turned on every light in the house. Not because I needed them, because I wanted the silence gone. The house still smelled like her perfume. There was a coffee mug in the sink with her lipstick on the rim. One of her sandals was under the couch. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just started packing. It felt mechanical. I pulled her clothes from the closet, folded them like I was doing laundry on a Sunday morning. Her books, her lotions, her drawer full of tangled hair ties. All of it went into boxes. I didn't take inventory. I didn't stop to reminisce. I just moved. Deliberate, efficient, focused. I took down the framed photo of us in Big Sur, the one we took on our 5th anniversary. She had her arms around me, chin on my shoulder, smile like she had everything she wanted. I didn't smash it or toss it out. I set it gently on top of her sweaters, closed the box, and taped it shut. By 9 a.m., everything she owned was stacked in the garage. I left a sticky note on the top box. It said, "Garage. That's all that's left." Then I changed the locks. Not petty, not dramatic, just necessary. I called a guy from Yelp, Miguel, who showed up in less than an hour. I watched him drill out the deadbolt like he was performing a small surgery, and when he asked if I wanted new keys made, I told him no. I'm the only one who needs them. Miguel didn't ask questions, just nodded and said, "Smart man." When I finished, I blocked her number, deleted our message thread, removed her face from my favorites. I didn't send a text. I didn't leave a note. I figured the silence said more than anything I could write. At 11:38 a.m., a rental car pulled into the driveway. I watched from the front window as she stepped out. No purse, no coat, just wearing someone else's hoodie and leggings. Like she hadn't gone home after whatever last night really was. She looked up at the house, confused, walked up to the door and tried her old key. When it didn't work, she knocked. I opened the door halfway and left the chain on. Her eyebrows raised. "Seriously?" she said, like she was offended. "You changed the locks?" "No," I said calmly. "Upgraded them." She tried to peer over my shoulder. Maybe she thought her shoes would still be by the door. Maybe she thought she could talk her way back in. "I just need to grab a few things," she said, shifting her weight onto one foot like she always did when she was trying to sound casual. "Can we talk?" "No," I said. That stunned her for a second. She blinked, pulled the hoodie sleeves over her hands. "You're overreacting," she said. "It was just a conversation." I stepped back far enough so she could see the boxes through the side window. "Then your things can finish the conversation in the garage." Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Just that look, half guilt, half defiance. She adjusted the hoodie. It wasn't hers. Probably his. "I didn't cheat," she said. "I didn't respond. I didn't sleep with him," she added louder. Still, I didn't respond. She stepped back, folded her arms. "Unbelievable. You're being insane." "I watched you get in his car," I said finally. "I watched you laugh. I heard you call me an idiot. You don't have to explain. I saw enough." She stared at me, her jaw clenched, but her eyes, they weren't angry. They were scared. Because she knew this wasn't like the fights we'd had before. There wasn't going to be yelling, crying, or long emotional texts. This was it. "You're not even going to try to fix this?" she asked. I shook my head slowly. "You already broke it. I'm just moving the pieces out of the way." And then I closed the door. Didn't slam it. Didn't lock it dramatically. Just shut it, turned the deadbolt, and walked back into the quiet. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel righteous. But I felt clear. I told myself I wasn't going to do it. Told myself 100 times, in the shower, in traffic, lying in bed staring at the ceiling fan. I wouldn't be that guy. The guy who drives by her work. The guy who happens to be in the neighborhood. The guy who lets curiosity disguise itself as closure. But 2 days after the front door scene, I found myself pulling into a parking lot I hadn't been in since I helped her move offices last summer. She had started working for some trendy interior design firm just off Pacific Highway. Lots of glass walls and free espresso. I remember she was so excited. "They value creativity," she told me back then, glowing in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. "It finally feels like they see me." I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but I nodded. I supported her. Bought her that new laptop when she said the old one was holding her back. Now here I was, sitting 2 blocks away with the engine running and no good reason to be there. I wasn't angry. That was the strange part. There wasn't a fire in my chest or a lump in my throat. Just a dull, distant ache. Like pressing a bruise you've already gotten used to. I waited maybe 15 minutes. Scrolled through the news. Thought about turning around and heading home. But then I saw her. Jenna. She stepped out of the building in heels and a long black coat that I didn't recognize. She looked composed. Professional. Her hair was tied up like she used to do when we had dinner plans with friends. Back when things still felt normal. And beside her, there he was. Same guy from the wine bar. He had that same smug, polished look. Expensive watch. Confident walk. He wasn't touching her at first. They just walked side by side. Talking. Laughing. Easy chemistry. Like they belonged in each other's world. Then she reached out and touched his wrist. Light, casual. Familiar. And a moment later he leaned in. Not rushed. Not testing the waters. Just sure. Like it wasn't new. She kissed him. Not a peck. Not a mistake. It was the kind of kiss that says, "This isn't the beginning. It's the middle. We've been here." I didn't flinch. Didn't curse. I just sat there, watching it all through the windshield like I was watching a movie I already knew the ending to. The guy smiled. Jenna smiled back. They sat down at a cafe table just outside the building, ordered something I couldn't see, and laughed like it was Tuesday, which I guess it was. And I guess I had my answer. She hadn't made a mistake that night at the wine bar. She hadn't gotten swept up in something confusing or impulsive. This wasn't emotional uncertainty. This was a pattern. This was a decision. And I wasn't part of it. I drove away without them noticing. Turned the corner and pulled into a quiet street where I finally parked and just sat for a while. Hands on the steering wheel, watching a couple of kids race scooters down the sidewalk like they had nothing to lose. I didn't feel the need to confront her. Or him. What was there to say? The worst part wasn't even the betrayal anymore. It was how cleanly I'd been erased. How little resistance it took to swap me out of her world like a used-up app on her phone. That's what hurt. Not the kiss. The ease. That night, I didn't expect to hear from her. I thought maybe she'd stay quiet at least for a few days. Let the dust settle. Let the silence speak. But around 8:37 p.m., my phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. New line, maybe. Or she'd blocked me too and thought this was fair play. The message was short. "You crossed the line. I just needed space. You've always been controlling, Chris." That was it. No hey. No explanation. Not even a trace of guilt. Not even the decency to pretend. I read it twice. Once with confusion. The second time with something between anger and disbelief. It wasn't even the words, it was the timing. She had kissed another man that afternoon. I had seen it. I didn't make a scene. I didn't blow up her phone. I didn't tell anyone. I walked away. And somehow, I was the one who crossed the line. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I knew she wasn't actually listening. This wasn't a conversation. This was a performance. Her script had been ready for weeks. You've always been controlling. That's the line. The fallback. The rewrite. And the worst part? I knew she'd already started telling people that version of the story. Probably not everyone. Just enough. Her close friends, a few work colleagues. Maybe even her mom. It wouldn't come out as a bombshell either. It would sound soft. Reasonable. Chris means well, but he's intense. Overprotective. I just needed room to breathe. We weren't in a good place for a while. That's how it starts. They don't drop the hammer, they plant the seed. Then stand back and let the assumptions grow. And suddenly, I'm not the guy who helped her through 2 job changes, or supported her writing dream, or paid for therapy when she said she felt lost. I'm the emotional jailer, the obstacle, the excuse. She didn't mention the kiss, or the guy, or the wine bar, because admitting that would complicate the story. And the story only works if I'm the villain. I put my phone face down on the coffee table. The message was still glowing up from under the glass like some twisted kind of trophy. She wasn't sorry. She was scared. Not of losing me, but of losing the narrative. Because if she had to admit she stepped out emotionally, and then physically, it would undo the image. And Jenna always cared more about the image than the int asterisk Macy. Maybe she thought I'd lash out, or fight back, or call her crying. I did none of those things. I turned off my phone, opened a beer, and let her message sit there unanswered, unread, unvalidated. Because I didn't need to explain myself to someone who had already decided what kind of man I was. And more than that, I didn't need permission to let her go. 2 days passed. Quiet ones. The kind where every noise in the house sounds louder than it should. The coffee machine groaning in the morning. The fridge humming in the dark. No footsteps upstairs. No drawers opening. No distant sound of her voice humming along to Spotify while folding laundry. Nothing. I didn't hear from Jenna. Not a call. Not a text. No apology. No second message trying to clarify the first. She was leaning all the way into her version of the story, and I was letting her. But then came the knock. Not the pounding kind. Not the awkward Amazon guy dropping a package kind either. Just a soft, deliberate knock, 2 quick taps, then one slower. Felt personal. I opened the door and there she was. Rachel, Jenna's best friend. Hair pulled back tight. No makeup. Wearing one of those zip-up hoodies she always wore to brunch. She looked uncomfortable, like she was here against her better judgment. Eyes darting past me like she expected to be yelled at just for showing up. "Hey," she said, almost a whisper. I just stood there. "I know I shouldn't be here," she added quickly, already halfway into a wince. "And if you want me to leave, I will. I stepped aside and opened the door wider. She walked in slow, looked around like the place was unfamiliar now. Maybe it was. She hadn't seen it like this. Without Jenna. Without the usual warmth and mess of a shared life. "I won't stay long," she said, stopping near the edge of the living room. I think you deserve to know something." I didn't say anything, just crossed my arms and waited. She looked nervous, like what she was about to say might cost her a friendship. "Jenna's been telling people you suffocated her," she said finally. "That you tracked everything. That you made her feel like she lost herself." I didn't move, didn't flinch, just let it land. "But," Rachel continued, "that's not the whole truth. Not even close." Her voice cracked a little. "I heard her say something a couple weeks ago," she added. "At brunch. She thought I went inside to grab my phone, but I was standing near the deck. She was talking to Melissa and another girl I didn't recognize. She laughed and said, 'Honestly, I probably deserved it. I was already gone before I left him.'" Silence. "I know I should have told you sooner. Rachel exhaled, shaking her head. "I didn't know whose side I was supposed to be on. But the way she's talking now, it's not fair to you. And I couldn't let her rewrite everything like that. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath." Rachel sat down on the edge of the armrest like she wasn't sure if she should stay or bolt. "She's spiraling," she said softly. "I know she looks like she's holding it together on the outside, but she's not. She doesn't even know what she wants. She's telling different stories to everyone. You're the villain in some, the martyr in others. And I don't think you deserve that." I finally spoke. "Thank you," I said, "for telling me." Rachel looked relieved, maybe even a little emotional. "She's gonna hate me for this?" she admitted with a sad laugh. "But I think I'd hate myself more if I didn't say it." She stood, zipped up her hoodie halfway, and walked toward the door. Right before she stepped out, she paused. "For what it's worth," she said, "you were always good to her. I saw it. A lot of us did." And then she left, just like that. The door closed behind her, and the silence came back. But this time it felt lighter. Not because it made anything easier, but because for the first time someone else saw it too. The truth. Not the spin. Not the story she was selling. Just the truth. We sat across a glass table like strangers. Jenna looked polished. White blazer. Calm expression. Not a flicker of guilt. My lawyer laid out the evidence. Emails, timestamps, security footage. Her walking hand in hand with him 2 days after she needed space. Her lawyer called it emotional distress. Ellis slid a message across. I feel bad, but I can't stop. I need to feel alive again. Jenna went quiet. No apology. No explanation. Just silence in the room where truth had already spoken louder than she could. Jenna sat frozen, staring at the message. Her voice caught in her throat. That was out of context, she said, but it didn't land. No one pushed further. There was nothing left to say. The mediator wrapped things up with polite language that felt empty. We'll reconvene. Let's stay constructive. As Jenna gathered her things, I caught one last glimpse of her face. It wasn't guilt. It was calculation. She wasn't sorry she did it. She was sorry she got caught. The second mediation felt like a play. Jenna wore a black blouse, hair in a loose bun, eyes just glossy enough to suggest pain. He tracked my phone. I felt like a prisoner, she said. I didn't flinch. I simply replied, you said you wanted to quit your job, right? I paid the bills so you could. She went on. He made me dependent. I lost who I was. Ellis slid the printouts across again, her messages to the other man. Her handwriting at the bottom. I need to feel alive again. No one said anything after that. We were asked to step into a side room, just her and me. She stood by the window, arms folded. I'm not trying to ruin you, she whispered. You already did, I said. You just haven't felt it yet. She turned to face me, finally quiet. For the first time, no mask, no monologue. Just silence. Maybe even regret. But it was too late for that. She asked for the car. Said she had nothing. Then she asked for the joint account I built over 10 years. I gave you my best years, she said. Tears just on cue. I watched her, calm. Not angry. Not even hurt. I just didn't care anymore. I'd already lost her. The rest was just paperwork. 3 days later, I got a letter. Request for spousal support. Accusations of psychological distress, emotional imbalance, marital neglect. She was rewriting the script, painting herself the victim, but the role didn't fit. Not anymore. Not with everything I had. Not with what she left behind. Then came something I didn't expect. An email. From him. The man from the cafe. His name was Jude. He apologized. Said Jenna told him I was abusive. Controlling. He said he left the moment he realized she was lying. You're not crazy, Chris, he wrote. You were just the first to see her clearly. I stared at that line for a long time. She showed up unannounced, eyes tired, no makeup. He's gone, she said. I lied too much. People feel like they're drowning around me. She stood there, like she wanted me to fix it. But I wasn't her safe place anymore. I wasn't the man who'd carry her chaos. I don't know where else to go, she whispered. I just nodded, said nothing. A month passed. No calls, no letters. I repainted the walls, gave away the couch. Only one thing stayed, a note she left behind when she moved out. Scribbled in blue pen, you'll thank me someday. I framed it, not out of love, out of clarity, a reminder of who I was, and who I'd never be again.